And welcome, everybody, to another episode here. We have ourselves a guest joining us, a very special guest joining us today. We're going to call her Lily for this broadcast. Welcome, Lily.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So, for those of you who are joining us, didn't watch the past couple streams or didn't watch the last stream, we reviewed Lily's document last stream that she had put forward regarding a very serious accusation in the Southern Ontario cosplay community, regarding a cosplay photographer, Tom Savage, also known as Everage Studios. It goes by many names, many names. Hello, everybody in chat. How are you doing? Good to see you all. But Lily was very kind enough to accept an offer to come on stream and talk about this today. So we're not really gonna we're kind of going like the old throwback here to what we used to have with the 2-person setup here. We're throwing back old school here, and so we're going to be kind of throwing away the little silliness that we normally have to get a bit more serious tone, because I think this is something that is very important that we need to talk about, both for the community locally and the community at large, because I think these are topics that stretch far beyond just Southern Ontario. So I wanted to thank you, Lily, for joining me today to talk about this. So why don't you just start off and tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're comfortable talking about?
So I'm Lily. I have been part of the Ontario cosplay scene since I was 14, almost 10, 11 years. Though I did take a break for the last 4 or 5. And by part of it, I mean like 7 or 8 conventions a year, long time, big part of the community.
Yeah.
And now I'm an adult with a job.
That kind of takes up some time, doesn't it?
Yeah, the schooling took up time away from conventions and also money. So
absolutely. Well, just before we get into the main topic here, what are you doing now that the pandemic has kind of just put an embargo on conventions? Is that giving you a bit more free time to plan?
Yeah, so I've been planning to come back to this scene, hopefully towards the end of this year.
Nice.
I finally have the time and some of the funds to do so. So right now I'm kind of just hunkering down, waiting for the pandemic to finally be over, staying inside, and
great.
Just trying to keep everyone safe and stay away from COVID. So
absolutely, keeping them safe from COVID and keeping them safe from potential risks at conventions. You're almost a superhero in your own right, Lily.
I wish.
Well, we'll get into the topic here, because this is again something that's really important. I know we read over I blanking on the name, Sweet's post. I believe it's she posted a very detailed document, grouping together a whole bunch of allegations and conversations and things, talking about Tom Savage and his particular way of going about business. And I remember in that conversation on the Facebook wall, I remember seeing that you posted, and you'd posted a link to your own document, talking about your personal experience. Now, this is something that I value very highly, because there's a bunch of people that anyone can come out and post and say, oh, I had a creepy experience, or I had this, whatever else. But not everybody has the documents to back it up, right? Not everyone has the DMs to back things up. So I don't want to talk too much for you. Like, I want you to share your own story here. If you wanted to, like, just from the beginning, how did you get connected with Tom?
So it was pretty much just a chance encounter.
Yeah.
I was at Emiko's, which at the time was a small con close to where I lived. I was a teenager, you know. Um, I was just attending with a couple friends for the day, and Tom had come up to me and he's like, "I love your outfit. Can I take a couple pictures of you?" And I was like ecstatic because like I never at that point had someone come up and ask me for a photo. Especially because I wasn't even in cosplay. I was just like wearing a cute outfit.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so we took a couple pictures, and like right from the get-go, like before the photo shoot ended, was the question, are you willing to wear the handcuffs and take a photo?
And how
And at the
old were
time I
you?
was 16.
You're 16 at the time. Okay.
I was 16.
It's a slightly odd question to ask a 16-year-old, I would think.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it till after the con, I think, because I was just still in that like, oh my god, someone asked me for a photo headspace. Like, just full teenage blinders of just being excited that like anyone showed you attention.
Right. And so that wasn't the end of it, right? I mean, it wasn't just a one and done thing. Like, you just met him one time at Emiko's and that was it. How did you see him anywhere else?
Yeah, so after Emiko's, I through Emiko's I connected with him on Facebook,
Okay.
and we started talking. The next convention after that was Anime North. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm doing photos Anime North. Are you gonna be there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be there. Let's do photos." Because again, just the idea of anyone wanting to take photos of me, especially for free, like that was wild.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that continued through conventions I went to throughout the next few years. I don't think there was a single con I went to where Tom was not there.
Right. He's a pretty
Mhm.
prominent figure in the community, wasn't he?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, he even if he wasn't like going inside the con, he was always outside taking photos.
Okay. So was he known? Like, so you had friends obviously that went with you to these conventions and
Mhm.
stuff over the years. Did they know Tom, or did they know of Tom?
No, so like at the time I was like the friends were kind of my drag-alongs. I was the one who was like, "Let's go conventions, cosplay, I love it." Like, so my friends didn't know. My friends weren't even part my friends were even less part of the community than I was.
Right.
Um and I gradually made more friends through Tom over the years.
Oh,
But a lot of people that were initially with me there, for the first couple like encounters, they never really got into the scene,
right.
and they never really like continued going the same way I did.
Okay. And was anyone with you when he was making these like weird requests, or was it just you and him?
I had, if I remember correctly, I had at least one friend there, at Emiko's at least,
Hmm.
who also got their picture taken.
Okay.
Um, and I think at the time, like the friend was a year younger than I was even,
Hmm.
and we again just didn't even didn't even cross our minds that this might be something creepy or bad, or like we just didn't even have that context.
Right. Okay. And so you're saying that this went over several years across many different conventions, because like I mean I've been a part of the Southern Ontario convention and cosplay scene for a while myself, and again I saw him at every convention that I went to. Like he was a figure that, you know, pretty much any cosplayer that was a name in the community at least knew of him or knew that they could get shoots with him. And so you said that you met people through him. Like, who would they be, if you're comfortable, even just like referencing their stage names or whatever?
Um, yeah, I don't want to include names necessarily
Yep.
because a lot of them are also people who are dealing with a lot of this as well.
Of course.
Um, but basically, what would happen is, I go meet him for the photo shoot, and there's already a group of people around. There's normally he would set up in like a spot, and everyone would like chill out there when they're not doing something else, and
Right.
so I would meet people hanging just around the photo shoot area.
Okay.
Um, and so a lot of my even then, by the time I started getting more into the community,
Hmm.
almost everyone I knew was related to him in some way.
Oh wow.
I made very few friends in the community who weren't somehow related or through him.
Oh wow.
My first boyfriend was even through him. Like,
Funny. So without naming names, just for the viewing audience to understand, the listening audience, without naming names, would these people be considered like prominent? Would someone speak their name and know who they are if they're in Southern Ontario or in the cosplay community?
some of them I think you would recognize, like from years of conventions. They were the same thing. They were always at almost every con,
Right.
hanging around. Some of them got out kind of earlier than I did. Some of them later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think there's definitely people that like people would be like, oh, I recognize them. I've seen them around. Like I recognize their name.
Okay. So, and I was reading when we were reading through your document, and like I don't want to bring it up if that makes you too uncomfortable, like the conversations themselves. But reading through the document, I could tell the points when even when you were young, you kind of realize like, okay, this is a bit weird, but you know this is making me a little bit uncomfortable, and you communicated that pretty effectively, I think. At what point did you realize that something was a bit off?
The scary thing, I didn't fully realize until even a couple weeks ago when this started.
Oh wow.
I was one thing that it's important to reference is at this time, Tom basically became one of my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like a 35-year-old ish guy was the best friend for like a 16, 17-year-old girl. And so I don't think a lot of it even pinged at the time of this was weird. Like there's definitely that thing in the back of my head where it's like, this is kind of weird, this is kind of odd. Um but I was already so close to him, and I was already so involved in everything
Mm-hmm.
that it never really hit me until I was an adult out of the scene for a few years, and his name came up again, and I was like, I need to go through my messages.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized what really happened.
That's wild. So, and again, like when I was reading it, I thought that you realized this many years before, so you didn't realize this until just a few weeks ago, or however long it was
Yeah,
ago.
it kind of blindsided me
Wow.
because I cut off contact with him for a lot of reasons.
Okay.
And amazingly, one of those reasons wasn't taking pictures of me underage and fetish content. Um,
Go figure.
and after I split off contact with him, I basically split off all contact from the community, the Southern Ontario community in general.
Mhm.
Um, and everything just kind of faded to the back of my mind. Like, to be fair, like over the last couple years, I've dealt with a lot of other things that aren't this.
Right.
So I think my mind just kind of picked it up and put it in the back
Mhm.
and was like, we're gonna forget about this one for a while. And then when his name came up again, everything just kind of flooded forward, and I was like,
Mm.
I need to go reread and look at these and check the dates on things because I think this was a lot bigger than I thought it was when I was younger.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely seems to be that way. Now, I know in some of the conversations you've had with him as well, and now is this document still available online? Like, do you still have it available online for
Yes,
people?
I still have the document. Yeah.
Okay. I'll grab that link from you after the show, and I'll put it in the description if that's okay, so that people can
Yep,
reference what
that's
we're
fine.
talking about. So, um, when you were talking with him, you actually did at several points. I think at several points he brought up that people had been saying stuff about him, or people had been, you know, this or that or whatever else. And he kind of questions you on if you like what you've heard, or et cetera, et cetera. Do you remember any of that, or what was happening around
I
him?
I do, and he was really good at that. Specifically at as soon as there might be something coming out, he would message before I would see it.
Oh wow.
And he would come in and he'd be like, "Have you heard anything? Have you heard any rumors? Like, have you heard about what's going on?"
Hmm.
And I'd be like, I've heard like little things. I'm not really sure, like, or I haven't heard much." And he would be right in there to be sure, like, yeah, like this person is just such an asshole and they hate me and they just and it's all like it's not true, I promise, like everything's fine, don't even worry about it. And I just straight up bought it.
Hmm.
Like I was positive that there was no way that he was correct, that he was right in the situation every time and everyone else was just big meanies that just didn't like him for random reason or another.
So strange. Well, and so what were some of the things that you had heard people complaining about before?
There was like a post that would go around on like 4chan and like people's individual friends, but like the post was always, "This guy has a foot fetish. Don't shoot with him."
Hmm.
It was never so I'd heard that he had fetishes, and after I was 18, he was a lot more specific and admitted that he did have those fetishes.
Oh wow.
Before I was 18, he would often tell me, like, "It's just art. It's just artistic."
Hmm.
Um, so a lot of the info that was around on him was just, "This guy has a foot fetish." And so it was really easy for him to spin that as, "They just don't like me because they're anti-kink, and they just don't like me because 'cause I'm honest about my fetishes." And and that was the thing he always spun me, was that like, all the info I heard was always just that he had a fetish, so he was bad. It never went into anything more specific or anything more egregious.
Hmm. That's so it's so strange. Like how he said like as soon as you turned 18 he would get like he just kind of changed his tune on that whole thing. And I noticed like during his conversation he claimed to be asexual. Now I don't know Tom that well or anything like that, but was that something that you got the vibe of, like was he like actually, or was that just something that he tried to use?
So, I think it's a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did just use it,
Mm-hmm.
um, as a way to kind of like, there was definitely conversations where he would be like, it's fine because I'm asexual and I couldn't even jerk off to it if I wanted to." like straight up.
Well, that's a lot of information from you,
um
yeah.
and and there was definitely, I think I bought it partially because he was never like touchy or like gropey or creepy physically.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, that was what a creeper was someone who was just like straight up sexually assaulting you.
Right.
Like there was no in between. You know, there was no gray area of this is still creepy and it's also not rape.
Right.
um so yeah, it was, I think that helped me buy it because he never did try to like sexually assault me. So my brain was like, so obviously it's fine.
Okay. That's it's a lot to process. I mean, this whole situation, right? It's a lot to process, and I imagine that you're still processing a lot of what happened, right? That you're still looking back on things and just kind of reviewing every single situation with a fine tooth comb. Would you say, as someone who's been in this situation now, and you've been, uh, I guess, for lack of a better word, manipulated, would you consider being Tom's friend again after all of that?
No. um I mean, the reason I broke off contact with him was even without all the creepy stuff,
Hmm.
he was still a pretty manipulative and shitty friend. Like, and I don't think there's anything that could make up for what went down.
Well, what was some of the stuff that he did?
It's it. Well, I have photo proof
Yeah,
of him taking fetish photography of me from a young age.
absolutely.
Um, and I don't talk about it a lot in the document, but he was basically responsible through our conversations of leading my entire like intro into sexuality as an adult, even. Um,
Is that something that you wanted to talk on, or is that
I'm okay with talking a little bit about it. I
okay?
didn't include a lot of it in my document,
Yeah,
because I was overage at the time,
right.
and it's not super relevant to specifically talking about him taking fetish photography of minors.
Yes, absolutely.
But like I remember like being 19 and us planning out this whole day where I was going to rent out a hotel room and we were going to take fetish photography, and he was like my first intro into the kink community. Um he was my first intro into so many things, and like I was coming into it as an 18-year-old, brand new adult, already having been built from age 16 to trust him, that he was a safe place, that he was, you know, he was good, and he was and I could talk to him about this stuff, and he would lead me, and he
Mm-hmm.
would like he would teach me.
It's
And
scary
and that
stuff.
followed me from 18 to 21.
Right.
He was, like I said, he was responsible for setting me up with my first boyfriend ever.
Oh wow.
He knew that I had never dated anybody, and like he knew every aspect of my life and my sexuality and my person and my struggles and everything. He knew from even 16, 17. He knew the things going wrong in my life. He knew like everything about me.
That's wild. So I think you might be a bit too young to get these references. But are you aware of the names John K, Dave Sim, either of
No,
those?
those aren't familiar for
No.
me.
Okay. I'm just gonna go on a side thing here just for a moment, just to
Mhm.
educate you and educate some people in the listening audience that may not know. So John Kay was the creator of Ren and Stimpy. Dave Sim is a famous Canadian comic artist. Now, what they both have in common with this situation here is that both John Kay and Dave Sim were publicly exposed as grooming children. Well, at least one young minor. To the point, basically, John Kay had courted, I believe, two young girls. I don't remember exactly their age at the time, but they were young teenagers. I think like 13, 14. Dave Sim similarly was courting an underage minor and ended up getting together with her when she turned of age. And these are stories. The reason I'm bringing this up, these are stories that happened well before any of this stuff happened, like that we're talking about right now. To the point where like people that are your age right now don't know who these people are, but these are still stories that follow these people everywhere. Like to this day, John Kay, he doesn't engage with fans. He doesn't like he's aware that he has a problem of being attracted to minors, and he can't stop himself. So he remedies that by removing himself from society. Dave Sim similarly is aware of the perception that he's the perception of that he's a misogynist, quote unquote, and he's less so owning of the fact that he groomed a minor and things like that. And he's similarly kind of recused himself from society because people still know about these stories. They still know about these people, and they get persecuted until the day that they're going to die, I'm guessing, because there's no let up from this stuff. Anytime that you mention those two names in mostly any circles that know anything about comic books or animation, then people's backs get riled up over it. So this is why it's so curious to me that now we have this situation with yourself and with Tom Savage, which is very much carbon copy, where he made the safe space for you from your young age, young impressionable age. I mean, in whoever's opinion that's watching this, right? He at one point during your conversation even asked you out for a date, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, to be fair, that was at least when I was
when you were of age.
But yeah. He literally started with, "Would you consider dating me?" And start like he's like, "Sorry, no, this." He's like, "If I were younger, I would ask you out," and literally follow with the sentence, "Sorry, that's the creepiest thing I've said today."
Yeah,
like
he knew. He knew. This is what I mean, though. It's like, this isn't something like you turned 18 and then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh wow, I just all of a sudden today have feelings." This seems to be something that had been built up over a long period of time, and he knew it was improper. And even when he was asking you, he knew it was improper. So I mean, it's shocking to me that this isn't more. I mean, I guess it's still young, it's still fresh, in the world right now. The story is not out there fully yet, but I don't know. It's shocking to me that we have in our community we still see that as a cardinal sin mostly, and I'm grateful for you to come in and share this, because this is something that's important, because we don't know if this happens to it's not just exclusive to Tom, obviously, right? Because there's other people out there that take advantage of young cosplayers, and clearly, without me having to say it, Tom has some sort of influence on the cosplay community, does he not?
He has,
or have.
I think the scariest thing is like his main sphere of influence was new cosplayers who were often young. Because as cosplayers got older and more into the community, they start paying for photo shoots, they start splitting off their friend groups,
right.
They start moving to different bigger conventions, and they start to move away from that. But almost everyone I know first met him and came to his sphere of influence when they were young.
Right.
Um, just because young, broke cosplayer gets offered free photos and attention. And I think that's really potent, especially because, it's not uncommon for these cosplayers to have been bullied for their interests or for being strange or for their looks, which were all cases for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then this guy comes up and says, "I'd love to take photos of you." And you're just so excited. And that's so potent of a combo, and it's so easy to pull someone into the influence that way.
So, and without being like at the risk of being rude, do you think that he targeted you?
No. So what I don't think it was this malicious, pre-thought out,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do all of these, and then once they're older, like, then I got 'em. Like, I don't think it was that, and I think that makes it even scarier in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think it was necessarily intentional. I think it's just that everyone let this behavior happen,
Hmm.
and he never had to face any consequences for it,
Okay.
and it was just allowed to continue.
So it's curious that you say that. So again, just for people that are out there listening to this and might not understand the full story, what behavior was allowed to happen, and by whom?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just straight up taking fetish content of minors, like photos.
Right.
I only included a couple because those were the photos I had.
Right.
Um, but it was every con, every costume, we do a photo shoot, and it would involve feet or an upskirt or me being stuck to the ground or
Mm.
handcuffs. And especially like as a young person with not much context for what fetish was,
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason a lot of this got away with it is because there's this idea that like sexual content and fetishizing and sexual misconduct involves nudes
Right.
and sexual like physical sexual contact, and I think he was able to just get away with it because it was just slightly behind the line of too creepy. It was innocent enough
Right.
for it to not raise those alarm bells, right? And that's definitely what happened to me. Is I had heard about cosplay photographers that raped cosplayers, that blackmailed them for nudes, that groped cosplayers. And in my head, that was what a creeper was. That
Right.
was what a bad cosplay photographer was. And that was what and that didn't fit my situation.
Right. And so you didn't think anything of it.
Yeah, it was definitely it definitely just passed by in my mind of part of it was he was good at saying words to convince me that it was art or that it wasn't that bad. And part of it was also just like you don't see people telling young cosplayers don't take photos of with your shoes off
Mm-hmm.
because that might be a creeper,
Yeah.
right?
So I
So
do want to ask, best of your knowledge. Now I'm not gonna put you on the spot and say prove it or anything else like that, but best of your knowledge at the time, from what you can remember, were you aware of him doing this type of photography to anybody else?
oh, I was super aware. I would do photo shoots handcuffed to other people.
Oh wow.
I we would do photos together up skirt. Um And again, these were all other young cosplayers that were in the same situation I was. And I don't think I don't think a lot of them got to the point that I did where he was like almost one of my best friends.
Right.
But I think that was even part of what what helped calm the alarm bells, because there's other people who were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was even people who were like me who met him younger or were younger, like older adults that I looked up to, people in their 18, 19, 20, not actually old enough to really know what's going on even, like still young adults, but they were older than me and it was fine.
Right.
And I think that's part of what soothed any thoughts in my head, was that there was other people.
My goodness.
Other people did this too.
Ooh. Now, I've heard plenty of rumors over the years, and most of them I don't even listen to, like, just because it's in the convention community, lots of hen house chatter, right? Like lots of people just making up stuff, and the telephone game and things get worse than they actually are. So one of these things was he was dating younger cosplayers. Of course, like I don't know. I've known that a couple of individuals in the community have openly made remarks about conventions that I've been involved with, etc., and how they harassed their boyfriend, or they called their boyfriend this or that, blah blah blah, referring to Tom. And I know their ages at the time, which it wasn't minor. Like they were of age, which is fine. But were you aware of anyone? Because like he asked you out when you were 18, obviously. So it
Mhm.
seems like he had at least asked a handful of other people out, at least one or two. Were you aware of anybody that he was dating in the cosplay scene?
Um, I was friends with him, I think, through like 4 girlfriends.
Oh wow. Okay.
Um, yeah, at least 4. Um,
No, you
so
don't
like I
have to
was
name
aware of it.
names, obviously, but
No, no, but like I was aware of his girlfriends. One of them I even talked to. We did private photos for him together.
wow.
Um, and I talked to quite a bit. And so yeah, like I was definitely aware of other girls in his sphere of influence.
Okay. So I just wanted to confirm, like, because it seems like what he was doing with you, he maybe have done with other individuals. I mean, I've tried to reach out to people, right? This is something that there's a lot of people that really are not confident, they're really not comfortable, and they don't have the bravery that you do to come and step forward. Because it seems like this is a known thing, and that it may affect the people standings in the cosplay community. Is that something that you're all at all worried about?
Um, if I was younger and 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 I was still in the scene when I came to this point,
Hmm.
I probably would have been um pretty scared, especially because like I said, most of my friends were friends through him,
Right.
and that was most of my connections at conventions. Like those are the people I talked to. Um, but
Hmm.
no, not anymore. I'm a fully fledged adult. I'm confident that coming back into it, I can make friends and I can judge people better,
Absolutely.
and like I trust myself to know now.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's hard to say if there's anyone with stories like mine. I One of the reasons that I did come forward when I did now, when I saw his name coming up for other behavior, is because I realized I had proof.
Right.
I had photo evidence of him taking photos of me underage
Hmm.
in this kind of content, and I had DMs
Yeah.
from years. And so that's what made me confident enough to say something about it, because I knew that it wouldn't be just a he said she said, rumor mill coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's still gonna be people who read my document and think it's fake, or they don't believe me, or they think it's fine. But it was important for me to make it and put it out there because I didn't want what had occurred with me to have to occur to any other young cosplayer again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, another thing that I wanted to kind of touch on here and just ask if you had any idea whatsoever, because like reading some of the other documents and DMs that were shared, like not yours, just other people's and things like that. Were you aware at any point that he was selling photography that he was taking?
No. I had never heard that until this came out, which apparently this had been talked about previously, but I think it was while I wasn't in the community.
Okay.
Um, I had never heard about photos being sold. The thing was always that everything was free. You're free to use the photos, and he wouldn't post any that you didn't want to be posted.
Right.
That was what I knew. Um, but yeah, I had never until now heard that he had been selling the photos.
And were you aware at any point in time, and this is a separate, because like selling stuff is one thing, so you wouldn't have known about the other part of it. But were you aware at any point in time that he was taking commissions from adults to get cosplayers to pose in specific ways?
No, I had never even heard about that either. I I always thought that it was just his individual influence. I had never ever heard that he was taking like requests from people for situations or um poses or anything like that.
Okay. These are important things to note. Sorry, I'm just answering a message really quickly. These are really important things to note because from what his own admissions were, and I'm sure you've read through what Sweet had posted.
Mhm.
From what his own admissions were, these were photos that he had taken, like the quote unquote that he had sold and he had conversations about. These were things that he had taken early on in his photography career, which I believe intersected the time that you guys would have been taking photos.
Yeah, from what it sounds like, it was older archives.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if my photos would have been in there. It sounds like it was like 2010, 2011,
Mm-hmm.
and I met him in 2012.
Okay.
I don't know if he opened up into the years I was there. Um, and honestly, I don't care to know.
Yeah.
I have enough to make me never want to talk to him again,
Absolutely.
without even knowledge that he sold photos
Yeah.
of me.
No, and the only reason I bring it up, and again, I don't want to make this an
Mhm.
uncomfortable situation for you. Like the only reason I want to bring it up is because like I want to ask you, because you're the source right now, if you had any knowledge of this, and it's clear that you didn't, and that you weren't complicit
Oh,
in
yeah.
any of that. So like obviously,
I had I had no idea.
right?
Never. That was never even something that came up with us. And like that alone is just awful in itself.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that was not something he ever talked to me about or mentioned to me. I had I always thought that any photos um that he posted of me were for free, same photos I would post on my like Facebook page
Yeah.
and share with people.
My goodness. Well, I won't keep you too much longer. I want to keep this interview nice and bite sized so that people can digest it and not do like a 4 hour thing where people are just gonna fall asleep halfway through. I want people to listen to this because this is really really important stuff. Um, have you like now that you know what you know and you saw the stuff that came forward? Have you ever like in the past couple of weeks considered bringing this forward to the authorities?
No. I am very, very well aware of how anything related to sexual assault or grooming or sexual violence is already treated by authorities. The stats are not good.
Mm-hmm.
I actually talked to someone in another group showing them the stats. The stats for Canada is like less than 30% actually get reported.
Yeah.
And of those that get reported, less than 1 in 10 end in conviction. And my case is, and this is why it was hard for me to even understand it for a long time and talk about it and think about it, was it doesn't fit the classic idea of what grooming or sexual violence or that kind of like power imbalance is.
Mm-hmm.
It's 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 different.
Right. Well,
And
sorry to
so
interrupt.
no, go ahead.
As a person who has been a victim of sexual assault myself, and I'm a huge hypocrite here because I didn't report it. Right. I regret every day that I didn't report it. But one thing I will say, stats aside, is I agree that as a whole, our system is broken. Largely because the people that are in charge of doling out and meting out justice don't necessarily do a great job of that. Understandably, it's been that way for a very long time, and that needs to get fixed. What I can say though, is, and this is just a hypothetical, and this is not me pushing you to do anything or not do anything or whatever. This is a hypothetical, right? Say that this does get brought up by anybody, right? Or it warrants enough for an investigation, for example. And that investigation gets hard drives seized and investigated. They can get documents off of those, even if they've been wiped, and things like that. They can find out exactly how many people someone like him or he directly has been victimizing, and potentially could get justice for not only yourself but a bunch of other people. Is that worth coming forward to talk about, like for an authority, for some sort of investigator?
It's a hard question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anyone else to go through what I did.
Absolutely.
I also don't think reporting it to the police is necessarily going to stop it and get it as out there as talking about it and sharing my document
Yeah.
to the people who are in the community and who are affected by it and who could be preyed on by it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um
And this
like
is
I know there's a lot of people who hate internet justice and cancel culture and all of that, but I think it's important that it's shared and people see it, because this isn't just someone said something mean one time.
yeah,
This guy literally controlled most of my sexuality and my form of self from 16 to 21.
absolutely.
I was checking the comments,
Yeah.
and someone asked how they can come up with a figure for unreported crime. Interesting thing, there's this thing called victimization surveys. Um, and often what will happen is they send these out to just multiple households, same way like a census,
Right.
and people can report crimes they've been victimized by and whether they submitted it to the police or not, and it's all anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And so through victimization surveys we can see that a lot of sexual assaults and sexual violence aren't reported.
And I really, like, honestly, I really do want to change that. I understand that not having results really fucking sucks as a victim of who's someone who's gone through an actual injustice and not got justice served. It's not a fact of like one major thing is going to change it for everybody. It's going to be a billion little things that eventually tip the scales. So like, and again, I don't want to pressure you into doing stuff that you aren't comfortable with. This goes out for and I'm saying this to every survivor of sexual assault or sexual misdeed, which I would classify this as, because I mean we have people out there that still hold John Kay and Dave Sim to the coals over what they did 40, 50 years ago. To what at that point were consenting adults when they took any actions, but still they groomed people from a young age, and like you said, controlled their lives sexually from 16 to 21. It's important to talk about it. Yes, I completely agree. Like 100%, people need to come out and talk about it and share their stories. But there's the other end of this as well. We need the documentation, obviously. Very important to document everything. Have the evidence there. It's really difficult to talk about it and have people challenge you. I know as an assault survivor myself, it's really difficult to do that because you have to...
I think the other thing...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the other thing for me, in terms of going to the authorities, I have reached a point in my life where I am happy.
Yeah.
I am doing what I want to do.
Absolutely.
I'm considering coming back to the cosplay scene. And just maybe it's a bit selfish, but personally, I don't want to be put in a 3-year possible process
100%.
of having to look in his face again
100%.
and have to prove that what he did was wrong, especially when there's a good chance nothing will happen. It's a lot to go through, and it's been a lot just to talk about it and make my doc. It took me like 2 days to put the doc together with the help of friends.
And I completely 100% sympathize with that. I'm very much in the same boat as you are. I completely 100% agree. And so again, this is not me imploring you specifically. This is me really like taking our stories, taking your story that you're telling now, taking the story that I've told countless times before in other streams, to talking to people who may be fresh out of this, talking to people who may end up seeing themselves in a situation that could be avoided. It's not an easy thing to live with, and it's something that sits with you for a very long time. And like you said, like, it might be selfish, but you're at a point where you're happy. I mean, like, I'm very much the same thing. It's like I could have gone to the police about my assault years and years ago, but then I would have had to see his face, would have had to go through all those emotions all over again. I just rather not. Right, and that's
it takes so much just to even talk about it in the first place.
Absolutely.
And my priority is making sure that the community knows, that conventions know,
absolutely,
that people who run conventions know, and so that he can't do this to other young cosplayers.
100%.
That this can't happen again. And I think the most effective way to do that is to talk directly to the community, directly to con organizers, to show them my story and enact the change that I can on the ground.
Right.
And that's what matters most to me, is focusing on conventions and the community and making sure that people know.
Well, and you're definitely doing it the right way by doing it with your evidence and the stuff that you've saved. Because it's hard enough to talk about this with evidence. It's harder to talk about it with nothing but hearsay. I'm confident that we'll get to a point eventually where the justice system can kind of catch up to where it needs to be, where people aren't afraid to use the resources, whether it be lawyers, whether it be police, whether it be counselors, whether it be trusted friends. Talking to the people that we need to, so that it can be documented, have a paper trail, and show and be able to talk to, because like I it's I'm at a loss for words, honestly. It's something like, it's indescribable, but it's so important at the same time to make people aware about all of this.
Well, and I think we're reaching a point as a community and through also society that people are finally realizing this stuff isn't okay. Like, you can't just take advantage of people like that
Hmm.
and do it and just get away with it and just let it happen. And that's why I came forward now as I saw that things were coming out with the selling the photos and stuff,
Hmm.
because I think this is finally the time that people are willing to listen and look and see what happened and understand what happened.
And
I don't know if I came out with this even 4 years ago when I finally cut off contact with him, if people even if this would have even happened, if anyone would even want to listen to my story.
well, I've personally been talking about this for 7+ years. I've witnessed him doing questionable things, not to the extent of what you've described, but I've personally witnessed him, to the fact where I enacted a convention policy specifically because of that. Um, and I've been shouted down by many in the cosplay community, and many people in the convention community. Um, Basically, no one was willing to listen. Nobody was willing to
No,
listen.
a lot of people weren't, and that's why I want to people to see, because I think as well the reason that this has gone on so long is because there hasn't been anybody like me who's been that close, who has the document, who has the messages,
Hmm.
who can put it there and be like, this happened,
Right.
I can show it. And so for a long time nothing got done, regardless of how many people shouted from the rooftops and said that this was wrong and pointed out his behavior, because
Hmm.
there was always people who did,
Yeah.
but he was just still able to do it anyways.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was important for me to put the document together and put this out there, because it's not just rumors anymore. It's not just he's kind of a creep. It's he affected my life from age 16 to 21. He pretty much controlled my burgeoning into adulthood. And so I want people to see it. It's not just being creepy. It's not just a couple weird photos. It's not just him having a foot fetish. It's not even just him selling photos.
Yeah.
It's he has access to these young impressionable cosplayers, and he needs to not have that access in this community.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I want to again thank you so much for coming on and for sharing that, because it's, I know how difficult that must be. And I
Thank you
don't
for inviting
mean,
me.
I don't mean to be mean or rude by the line of questions that I have for you or anything else like that. It's literally, I want to show people that this is
No, all the questions were
genuine.
totally fine.
Like, that this is genuine. That this is not just you dogpiling on, as some people might hand wave it off as, because we've seen a lot of that. We've seen a lot of people using it to forward their own things. This is real. You brought facts. You brought evidence. You had the gall to stand here and tell your story. And I think that is. I think that's honestly Like that's honestly like one of the best things that anybody in this situation could do. I mean, like unfortunately, you're dealing with basically losing your teenage years, and you're going to be dealing with that for a very long time. And
It's a lot.
it is a
It's a
lot.
lot.
It is a lot.
It's and and I just want this to make a difference somehow.
I think it will. I'm hoping it will.
I want people to see it.
I want people to see this too. Um, so was there anything?
The other thing I would say
Yeah.
is I've seen this from people who know Tom and maybe they're an acquaintance and they don't and this is like blindsiding them and they had no idea or they're just coming to terms that this person they know did this thing. And like I get it. It's so tough to deal with when it's someone you know and it's someone close to you or someone you trusted. So like for those people, like I feel for you. It's super tough and it hurts emotionally and it hurts you too. And so just take the time to deal with those feelings, listen to the people who come forward, read the documents, see the evidence, and 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 listen to victims. It's hard to do when it's someone you know,
It
but
absolutely
it's
is.
important.
Mm-hmm. That's couldn't say it better myself. Absolutely wonderful. Um, so before I let you go free on this, we've been talking for just a little over an hour here, so that's again, I don't want to flood it too much, and I don't want to just rehash stuff that we've already been saying. Was there any other messages that you had for young cosplayers or people just getting into the community?
I think the biggest thing I can say to young cosplayers is trust your gut. If something feels off, if something feels wrong, if it feels creepy or someone gives you bad vibes, it's okay to just separate yourself from that and walk away. And to also just know that you you're awesome. You people will there'll be people who want to take pictures of you. There's people who will love your costumes. There's people who are amazing in the community. Search out those people and don't settle for just the person who's willing to give you the attention that you so desperately want and the validation that you feel you need. You are awesome. Like just keep that with you. You deserve to be treated well.
That is a wonderful, very well said, Lily. Thank you so much. Please keep in touch on DMs if you ever need anything. I'll do my best to reach out to my network and get folks out there to help and support you and get that word out and all that stuff. And if you want to send me the link to that on DMs, I'll post that as soon as this show is done. I'll put it in the link here so people can read your document, see it
For
straight
sure.
from your view. So thank you so much. I'll let you go about your day. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much for
inviting
taking
me.
the time. Honestly, it's been great. So hopefully we can do some great stuff here. Hopefully.
That's my greatest hope.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining. Take care.
Take care.
Okay, folks. So I again I wanted to kind of just keep the show nice and compact so that we can get this message out there, so we can get that out there and going. I'm at a loss for words, honestly. I'm at a loss for words about everything here. We even read the document last week. We even read everything last week, and I'm still getting emotional right now. And like I know that there's some people in the chat that are very sore about some situations that have happened to other individuals that we support. And one thing I can say, and then I'll echo Lily on this as well. You want to listen to the stories. You want to read the documents. The important thing here is that there are things to review. There is evidence to review. For people out there that are victims, share your story. Share the evidence. Don't sit there like it's a poker game and hold it back. If you're willing to talk, that's fine. If you're not willing to talk, that's fine. But you can't have it both ways. When you're talking about really important stuff, when you're talking about like these claims, when you're making serious allegations about something, it's hard enough to talk about it, right? It's hard enough to talk to it. It's hard enough to bring those memories back. So why would you not show everything? You know, show context, show conversations, show pictures, show everything you have. Put it on the table. I mean, it takes a brave individual like Lily to do that, right? It takes someone, and even to that point, like she said, like she's content where she is. She doesn't want to have to relive that. I mean, I know that resonates with me so fucking hard. I've talked about that before, how like I was like, and how it bugs me every single day. Like I have to have the weight on my shoulders of all the potential victims after my encounter, after I was sexually assaulted, all of the encounters after that I didn't report to the police. Maybe it could have stopped him. Maybe he could have been arrested. I don't know. That's on my conscience. But you know what? Very much like Lily, I'm in a place where I'm content now. And I know James Andrew Morrison, you said, you know, well, you're content, we'll fuck everybody else. But that's pretty much all you have. That's pretty much all you have. I mean, at the time, you don't know what to do. Which is why it's so frustrating in some situations that I know that all of us have been looking over, that you see these people who have, you know, no problem bringing this stuff up over and over and over again so they can get on the front page of a newspaper, or they can, you know, they can get into a position or a role that they wanted to get into. They don't back anything up though. Not like some people. I think we're at a point where, yes, we do need to listen to victims. We do need to read documents. We need to make our own decisions. Now, I think along the lines, eventually, at some point, we have to get back to basic. Like the Me Too movement, right? The Me Too movement, cancel culture, all that stuff. It started out in the good place. And it started out in the right mindset. Share your stories. let people make decisions about it. Somewhere along the line, everyone just decided to believe whatever shape the cloud was that day. Like, and then we forgot that we actually have to listen to evidence, that we actually have to review stuff. And then it turned into the other way, that we're attacking people that are sharing evidence. Like, we're making stuff up because we want to serve a specific narrative. We want to serve a specific thing, right? Like, I mean, I haven't been following it. But everything I've seen from like the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp thing, I don't follow it. I don't really pay much attention to it. But facts and evidence in front of people's faces, and people still say, you know what? I don't believe that. I don't want to believe that. There was an old saying, and it was on CSI. The great John Grisham on CSI, that facts don't lie, people do. And as much as we hate the facts, they're the facts. That's why they're facts. And I think that we need to get back to that point where we start critically reviewing things. We start listening to things. We start listening to the facts, not just what we want the facts to be, right? This kills me. Like, how many people potentially could a Tom Savage do this to? We saw it with John Kay. We saw it a bit with Dave Sim, right? History repeating itself here. We're seeing it now. Tom Savage. Countless other cosplay photographers that are taking advantage of young cosplayers. I'm at a loss for words, because this is a disease we haven't found a fucking cure for yet. And if it isn't for people like Lily standing up, we would never have fucking known about it. If it weren't for people like Lily sharing her actual fucking DMs, opening a window into her life, coming on here and saying he had control of her pretty much in every facet from when she was 16 to 21. That makes me sick to my stomach. And we, as a society, many in the cosplay community, still make excuses for that, because they don't want to believe it. Well, I'm hoping, because I'm going to keep screaming about this. I am going to keep putting this out there until somebody fucking listens. Because the last goddamn thing that I want is another 14, 15, 16-year-old to lose the joy of being a fucking kid. To lose the joy of going to a convention with their friends. The enthusiasm of dragging their friends who don't cosplay or aren't into anime. Because they felt like they wanted to be safe. And conventions. Anime North. Wake up. I saw the response from your admin was posted. A response that has been carbon copy for several years for everyone that's been bringing this up. He needs to smarten up. I don't think he's the one that needs to smarten up here. You're talking about the adults in the room making the decisions. Clearly, he's not one. Clearly, he doesn't have the mental faculties to make the correct decision. So you have to make the decision for him. Convention. And I'm speaking directly to Anime North right now because your admins came out and said as much. Oh, he better clean up his act. Clean up his act. The fuck does that even mean? You just want to keep pretending it doesn't happen? Because it's easier to deal with? Or are there people that actually know? You just don't want to be the one, you don't want to be the one to blow the whistle. Any convention. This goes out to any convention. Goes out to anybody at all. Like, if you let this happen, and you don't deserve any support, you don't deserve any shielding, you deserve the full extent of the law, you deserve full responsibility for the actions that are being taken. You deserve to have on your conscience that you are either indirectly or directly responsible for generations of children having their childhood stolen from them because you refused to make the adult decision. Because I can tell you, as a victim of sexual assault, that decision's taken from you. You don't get to choose if you're assaulted. You don't get to choose if you're manipulated. And the person doing it, clearly, can't make the right fucking decision either. So stop facilitating it. God's sake, stop ignoring people. Hello, Stan. How are you doing? I know we started the show a little bit earlier than we normally do. And I wasn't planning on this one being a very long one because I wanted to keep it short and sweet. I'm gonna be clipping the interview separate from my monologue after here, so I'm just at a loss. I saw part of it before. Okay, good. I'm just at a loss right now. So, I want to thank all of you guys for watching. I think this is probably a good part to chop it. I want to thank all you guys for watching. I appreciate you. Everyone in the audience there sharing your stories and sharing your comments. And I want to thank, once again, Lily, if you're out there watching, listening. Thank you again so much for coming forward and really talking about this and being brave enough to talk about this. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy for anybody. So, thank you guys so much. There won't be a show tomorrow because today is replacing that. I just need to data myself. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. I appreciate every single one of you. And food for thought and sleepless nights, absolutely. But we'll be back at it again next week, hopefully with a different topic. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. I appreciate y'all. As always, keep your stick on the ice. Bye-bye.